At exactly 2:14 a.m., the motion sensor in the living room was triggered. Just 2 minutes later, at 2:16, my 10-year-old son, still half asleep but trained for moments like this, hit the panic button under his bed exactly the way we had practiced. By 2:19, police officers had Brenda Sterling in handcuffs, tangled in my blackout curtains, and yelling about emergency code compliance inspections. She had broken into the small, unlocked laundry room window. Her explanation, delivered with unsettling seriousness, was that she had a suspicion about unsanctioned LED bulbs. My name is Arthur Mitchell. I'm a widower, and I work in IT support for a regional bank. I don't host neighborhood barbecues. I don't linger at mailboxes for small talk, and I definitely don't mow my lawn every 3 days like the Pinerist HOA handbook passive-aggressively recommends. My home is quiet, private, and simple. It's just me and my 10-year-old son, Leo, living our lives. And apparently, that made us the perfect target for Brenda Sterling, the self-appointed property aesthetics coordinator of Pinerist. In her mind, our porch light, our mailbox, and even our silence somehow threatened community's values. It started with notices slipped under my door at random hours. The first was a warning about a non-compliant decorative gnome, which was actually just a leftover Halloween skull I had forgotten to put away. Then came a $75 fine for unauthorized solar pathway lighting. The twist? Those lights had been there since I bought the house 5 years earlier, but Brenda insisted they violated subsection 12.4 of a lighting ordinance she had personally written just the previous month. One Saturday at exactly 6:42 a.m., she rang my doorbell and launched into a lecture in her most indignant tone about what she called seasonally ambiguous wreaths. The wreath she was referring to was a simple eucalyptus circle my late wife had made years ago. Another time, she tried to walk straight into my backyard, claiming she needed to measure the grass blades for compliance. When I told her to leave, she puffed herself up like a peacock and declared she would return with proper documentation. Neighbors often spotted her crouched behind her hibiscus bushes, gripping a clipboard and a pair of binoculars, whispering frantically into a walkie-talkie that she claimed was directly connected to code enforcement. Later, the actual code enforcement office confirmed they had never heard of her and certainly hadn't issued her any kind of radio. Then things escalated into something more serious than neighborhood annoyance. It became harassment. My trash can started getting knocked over every Tuesday night, spilling garbage across my driveway. The cable to my security camera was sliced clean through, likely with garden shears. That was when I reached my limit. I upgraded everything. Silent alarms on every door and window, infrared cameras with cloud backup, and most importantly, panic buttons placed at kid level in Leo's room and in the hallway. I taught him exactly what to do if anyone ever entered our home uninvited. Hit the button, lock the bedroom door, and hide in the closet. We practiced twice a week until it became second nature. Brenda's behavior only intensified after I refused to attend her so-called mandatory neighborhood beautification seminar. She began showing up at odd hours, measuring my mailbox height at 11 p.m., taking photos of my garbage bins from multiple angles at dawn. One afternoon, she even followed Leo home from the bus stop, claiming she needed to inspect his backpack for contraband gum. That was the moment I filed my first police report. But the officer explained that unless she actually trespassed, there wasn't much they could do. Then came the night everything changed. It started like any other. I put Leo to bed at 9:30 p.m., double-checked every lock, and sat down to finish a few work emails. Around midnight, I could hear Brenda's voice through the wall, ranting on the phone about what she called the criminal lack of HOA enforcement in our community. I should have realized she was building up to something. By 2 a.m., I was fast asleep, completely unaware that Brenda had decided she couldn't rest until she confirmed whether I was using an unapproved brand of laundry detergent. She later told that to the police, dressed head to toe in black, what she described as her standard inspection attire. Brenda crept toward my house, carrying a flashlight, a laminated HOA rulebook, and a digital camera to document what she called inevitable violations. She tried the front door first, then moved along the side of the house, testing each window. The laundry room window, which I had left unlocked earlier after airing it out, became her point of entry. She squeezed through like a determined raccoon on a mission, knocking over a bottle of fabric softener as she climbed inside. The motion sensor in the living room picked her up immediately, sending an alert to my phone. But before I could even process what was happening, Leo had already reacted. Ever since the backpack incident, he had been on edge. The moment he heard the soft beep of the motion detector, a sound he knew by heart, he pressed the panic button without hesitation. The silent alarm instantly notified the police using our preset home invasion code. I sprinted down the hallway to Leo's room, my heart pounding, praying he was safe and locked inside. Through the door, I spoke as calmly as I could manage. "You did everything right, buddy. Stay put." "Okay," he whispered back, his voice shaky. "Okay, Dad." I pulled out my phone and switched to the live security feed. There she was, Brenda Sterling, moving through my living room with a flashlight, taking pictures of my coffee table magazines, and muttering about unapproved reading materials. She wandered into the kitchen, opened my refrigerator, and began photographing its contents like a deranged food inspector, making disgusted comments about my non-organic milk. 12 minutes after the silent alarm had been triggered, the police arrived. I unlocked the front door just in time for them to rush in, weapons drawn, shouting for the intruder to reveal herself. Brenda froze for a second, then panicked. She darted behind my blackout curtains, only to become hopelessly tangled in them. The officers pulled her free as she screamed at the top of her lungs that this was an emergency code compliance inspection and that she had full authority to be there. She even waved her laminated HOA rulebook as if it were some kind of federal warrant. Once the officers realized she wasn't an ordinary burglar, but an HOA board member completely out of control, they called for a supervisor and began taking statements. Brenda insisted she had implied consent to enter any property within HOA boundaries for inspection purposes. The senior officer, barely concealing his disbelief, explained that HOA rules do not override criminal law, and that breaking and entering is still a felony, no matter how many bylaws she had printed out. She continued arguing, her voice shaking but defiant, claiming she was protecting property values and upholding neighborhood standards. When everything was finally investigated, it turned out this wasn't her first incident. Brenda had done similar things to 3 other families in the neighborhood. The Johnsons reported strange footprints in their garden and missing porch photos. The twins down the block found their shed doors mysteriously open several mornings in a row. And Mr. Henderson had actually caught Brenda inside his garage, but had assumed his medication was playing tricks on him. No one had camera evidence. Until me, I had everything. Clear, cloud-backed HD footage showing her creeping around my home, testing windows, climbing to the laundry room, and documenting what she called evidence of noncompliance. The lawyer I hired the next morning described it as the most complete documentation of a break-in he had ever seen. He even laughed out loud at the part where she got tangled in the curtains. The media picked it up quickly. Within 48 hours, local news aired the footage under the headline, "HOA President or Unhinged Trespasser?" The clip of Brenda screaming, "This is my jurisdiction," while wrapped in my curtains went viral overnight. Someone even turned it into a TikTok sound, which was used over 3 million times in the first week. Her mugshot, her perfectly styled hair turned into a tangled mess from the curtain incident, became a meme template for entitled people facing consequences. The HOA board scrambled to respond, calling an emergency meeting 2 days after her arrest. More than 200 residents packed the community hall, demanding Brenda's removal and the elimination of her 23-page amendment to the neighborhood guidelines. The vote was unanimous, except for Brenda's husband, who simply stared at the floor and abstained. That same night, the HOA was officially dissolved. Ironically, property values increased afterward. Buyers apparently loved the idea of a no HOA neighborhood. Brenda's legal troubles, however, were far from over. She faced multiple charges: breaking and entering, criminal trespass, unlawful surveillance, and endangerment of a minor, since Leo had been inside the house during the intrusion. Her lawyer attempted to argue diminished capacity caused by her obsession with neighborhood order, but the judge rejected it outright. Between the security footage, evidence of her previous break-ins, and her complete lack of remorse, the case was airtight. The trial lasted 3 days. Brenda took the stand and delivered a 40-minute rambling speech about how she was a hero saving the community from chaos. She compared herself to a neighborhood watch volunteer and accused everyone else of not caring enough. The prosecutor simply played the footage of her photograph in my refrigerator at 2:15 a.m. and rested his case. Leo testified remotely via closed-circuit video. Calm and incredibly brave, he explained how he heard the motion sensor beep, pressed the panic button just like we practiced, and hid in his closet until I told him it was safe. Several jurors visibly frowned when he described the nightmares he had after Brenda followed him home from the bus stop. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a verdict, guilty on all counts. During sentencing, the judge made it clear how seriously he viewed her actions, the trauma inflicted on multiple families, the fear caused to a child, and her complete refusal to take responsibility. He sentenced her to 18 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and $15,000 in restitution. When she heard the sentence, Brenda's jaw dropped. She turned to her lawyer and whispered, loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear, "This can't be happening. I have a neighborhood standards committee meeting next week." The judge was not amused. He added a permanent restraining order, banning her from coming within 500 feet of my home or Leo's school. Then came the final blow. She was permanently prohibited from holding any position in any HOA, neighborhood association, or similar organization anywhere in the state. Brenda gasped, gripping the defense table for support, her face turning the same furious shade of red as the non-compliant roses she once fined the Johnsons for planting.